In our headlines on this Tuesday, September 30th, here in South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung is playing host to his Japanese counterpart Shigeru Ishiba in the southern port city of Busan as part of their so-called shuttle diplomacy. Meanwhile, restoring online government services remains a daunting task as authorities believe it may take about a month for the complete return of normal operations following the recent fire at the National Data Center in Daejeon. And on the local political front, the Lee Jae-myung administration and the ruling Democratic Party are seeking to do away with the breach of trust charge to allow more leeway for corporate activities, but the opposition People Power Party is crying foul. We start our newscast today over in the southern port city of Busan, where President Lee Jae-myung is hosting Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba for a two-day visit. For more on the bilateral summit, I have our correspondent Yoon Jung-min standing by live. Jung-min, welcome. So what's the latest there?
Hello, Sunny. So talks are underway here in Busan to discuss bilateral cooperation on a range of issues. The two leaders, President Lee Jae-myung and Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, are sitting down once again after around a month since their last talks. Their talks will be centered on bilateral cooperation on tackling population decline and revitalizing regions outside their respective capitals, as well as on AI and hydrogen energy. We also expect a message, a partnership taking into account the fast-changing global trade order, as well as a three-way cooperation with the U.S. for regional security. Their meeting will be followed by a dinner.
Right. Jung-min, do tell us a bit about the importance of this latest interaction between the leaders of South Korea and Japan.
Right, Sunny. So today's meeting is a reflection of the full restoration of their so-called shuttle diplomacy. Take a listen to the president's top security advisor.
It's meaningful that we show our will to solidify the virtuous cycle of communication and cooperation by the leaders of South Korea and Japan completing reciprocal visits.
Ishiba is on a two-day visit to South Korea, which is his first and will be his last visit as prime minister. Japan's Liberal Democratic Party is set to elect a new leader in October, so it's more of a farewell meeting. Since taking office in June, President Lee has met Prime Minister Ishiba 3 times, first in Canada on the sidelines of the G7 summit, next in Tokyo, and this time in Busan. And it's the first time in 21 years that a Japanese leader is visiting a city other than Seoul for a bilateral summit. When the two met in Tokyo last month, they shared a consensus that their next meeting would take place outside the capital, with balanced regional development being their common concern. Earlier in the day, Prime Minister Ishiba paid a visit to the grave of the late Lee Soo-hyun in Busan, a Korean student who sacrificed his life in 2001 to rescue a Japanese man who had fallen onto the tracks at a railway station in Tokyo. He is seen as a symbolic figure of South Korea-Japan friendship. Back to you, Sunny.
Indeed, Jung-min, he is. All right, then, thank you for the latest from Busan. Now, ahead of his departure for the southern port city of Busan, the president chaired his weekly cabinet meeting and paved the path for a significant shake-up of the government structure. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin has details.
Major changes are coming to South Korea's government. On Tuesday, the cabinet passed an amendment to the government reorganization bill. The centerpiece is the prosecution reform, a key campaign pledge of President Lee Jae-myung.
그래서 검찰 제도를 개편하는 문제는 정말로 중요한 일이에요. 특히 이제 한 국가 공동체의 질서를 유지하는 최종 기구거든요. 죄진 사람은 오히려 보호해가지고 억울한 피해자를 깜빵 보내고 나쁜 사람한테 돈 뜯게 해주고 이거 진짜 많아요.
Under the new law, the prosecutor's office will be dismantled and replaced by 2 new agencies, one overseeing investigations under the Interior Ministry and another handling indictments under the Justice Ministry. Following a one-year grace period, the new agencies are set to launch in October 2026. Another major change involves the Finance Ministry. While it will continue managing taxation, economic policy, and treasury matters, its budget planning responsibilities will be transferred to a newly created agency under the Prime Minister's office at the start of next year. This is to strengthen checks and balances within the government and ensure more transparent fiscal management.
The reorganization will require tighter coordination among ministries and frequent consultations. President Yi has called for regular interministerial meetings, with key developments reported directly to him.
Also during Tuesday's meeting, the president ordered all government ministries to inspect their facilities and systems related to public safety and cybersecurity following the recent fire at the National Information Resources Service data center.
다음 주 국무회의 때까지 각 부처들은 전부 이거는 이런 문제가 있을 걸로 보이지는데 점검했더니 문제가 없다. 또는 이거는 문제가 있다. 아니면 이건 시스템을 보강해야 된다. 이거는 이런 매뉴얼을 보강해야 되겠다. 뭐 문제점이 있는 것들을 최대한 좀 발굴을 해서
A comprehensive review will be carried out at next week's cabinet meeting. The president went on to criticize the government for failing to establish an emergency backup system that would have allowed online services to continue operating from alternative data centers. The creation of this system will be overseen by the Presidential National AI Strategy Committee, launched earlier this month. 송유진, 아리랑 뉴스.
And in related news, restoring online government services remains a daunting task as authorities believe it may take about 1 month for the complete return of normal operations, following, of course, last Friday's fire at the National Data Center in Daejeon. Our Oh Soo-young has the latest.
Authorities are making all-out efforts to bring disrupted public services back online after Friday's fire at a major public data center paralysed government systems across the country. As of Tuesday, only 87 of 647 disrupted government services had been restored, a recovery rate of about 13%. Some services, including the issuing of resident registration certificates through the Gov't.kr portal, came back online on Monday. Korea Post also said fresh food parcel counters would reopen from Tuesday following the restoration of postal and financial services ahead of the Chuseok holiday rush. While the government is first restoring 551 systems that suffered no physical damage, the rest were completely destroyed by fire. A full recovery will take at least a month, according to the Ministry of Interior and Safety.
The government is focusing all resources on restoring critical services as quickly as possible. However, 96 systems from the destroyed data hall cannot be immediately restarted, so we are transferring them to the Daegu Center's cloud system to secure alternatives as fast as possible.
Among those 96 systems destroyed by the fire, the National Disaster and Safety Portal, which provides updates on emergency guidelines, shelter locations and disaster recovery support in the event of emergencies, is still offline. Internal networks such as the Onnara cloud, used for daily administrative tasks, were also lost in the blaze, forcing some officers to revert to handwritten documents.
We deeply apologize once again to the public. It is expected to take about 2 weeks to prepare the resources and another 2 weeks to set up the systems, but we aim to accelerate the process as much as possible with cooperation from firms already housed at the Daegu Center.
With prolonged disruptions inevitable, authorities are providing relief measures. September property tax payment deadlines have been extended, while fees for issuing resident documents are being waived. An Interior Ministry official told Arirang News that when it comes to foreign nationals, immigration and visa services under the Justice Ministry's data systems have not been disrupted. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, over in New York, on the last day of this year's UN General Assembly, that is this past Monday, North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Kim Sun-kyung took to the podium to reaffirm his regime's commitment to its nuclear arsenal. Our Lee Seung-jae covers his remarks.
A senior North Korean diplomat has reaffirmed that Pyongyang will never give up its nuclear weapon calling it a sacred and untouchable cornerstone of its sovereignty. Vice Foreign Minister Kim Sung-kyung delivered the remarks on Monday at the United Nations General Assembly in New York. It was the first time a high-ranking North Korean official had spoken from the assembly podium since 2018. Kim declared that the nuclear arsenal is enshrined in both North Korea's law and the constitution, describing it as an absolute asset that guarantees survival. He also argued that calls for denuclearization amount to demanding that North Korea surrender its sovereignty and right to exist.
We will never give up nuclear power, which is our state law, national policy, and sovereign power, as well as the right to existence. Under any circumstances, we will never walk away from this position.
The speech came as the U.S. maintains its policy of complete denuclearization of North Korea. Washington has left the door open for talks with the regime, and leader Kim Jong-un has previously signaled conditional openness to dialogue. Still, the vice minister rejected any scenario where the nuclear program would be abandoned. Kim also criticized joint military exercises between the U.S. and South Korea and trilateral drills with Japan, describing them as real war simulations aimed at the North. He framed these activities as justification for Pyongyang's nuclear stance. However, the diplomat also hinted at openness to engagement. He said North Korea is willing to expand cooperation with countries that treat it with respect and pursue friendly relations, regardless of differences in political systems. The speech comes as both Seoul and Washington say they hope to re-engage Pyongyang in talks aimed at reducing tensions and advancing peace on the Korean peninsula. There's also speculation that President Donald Trump could seek to revive direct dialogue with Kim Jong-un during his upcoming visit to South Korea for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit at the end of October. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The Yi administration and the ruling party are seeking to do away with the breach of trust charge to allow more leeway for corporate activities. The opposition party is crying foul. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin explains.
The South Korean government and ruling Democratic Party announced that they plan to abolish the charge of criminal breach of trust. The decision was announced at an economic task force meeting on Tuesday to discuss rationalizing economic criminal and civil liabilities. The criminal breach of duty or breach of trust charge is generally applied to owners, directors, or managers of a business who are accused of gaining proprietary profit, benefiting a third party, or damaging one's business by breaching their duty. The ruling Democratic Party claims that breach of trust charge often burdens businesses and hampers innovation, as business decisions that lead to a loss could be examined as a crime of breach of trust.
We will prepare improvement measures for breach of trust, which has been identified as a factor constraining corporate management activities while establishing institutional safeguards.
However, the People Power Party says the move harms employees and investors who suffer losses due to breach of trust. PPP Policy Committee Chair Kim Do-ok told reporters on Tuesday that the abolition is simply about granting immunity to those who have brought loss to corporations.
The move to abolish criminal breach of trust is merely to save Lee Jae-myung, and it is contradictory to creating a better country for business.
This claim comes as President Yi faces the same charge in the Daejangdong land development case, where the trial is currently suspended. Criminal breach of trust was one among the 110 financial crimes that are being prioritized for improvement by the ruling party and government. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Come late November, South Korea's homegrown Nuri rocket will launch into space for a fourth time following its last test back in May 2023. Our Park Ko-nu files this report.
November 27th. The domestically developed Nuri rocket is set to blast off for its fourth launch from Goeungun County in Jeollanam-do province in the country's southwest. The Korea Aerospace Administration said Tuesday that the launch is scheduled for around 1 a.m. that day, with backup dates running through December 4th in the case of any variables such as the weather. This will be the first nighttime launch as the timing is optimal for one of the main satellites on board to enter its mission orbit, where it'll observe auroras and the atmosphere. But the exact time will be confirmed the day before. The process for a successful launch is ongoing, with the wet dress rehearsal, a critical pre-launch test to check whether the launch vehicle can withstand extreme cryogenic temperatures, was completed earlier this month. The spaceship will also carry a biocabinet, enabling biological experiments in space, a first for Korea. And another standout for this launch is that it's being conducted by a private company, Hanwha Aerospace, for the first time, although with governmental support.
The government should be supporting companies with technology or funding. Space competition is no longer a hegemony fight or just for expedition. You need to see it from a space economics perspective. That's why a transition to a private-led operation is important.
This launch marks the first since the establishment of the Korea Aerospace Administration, after the last Nuri launch in May 2023, following the first in 2021 and the second in 2022. And officials say especially this mission will be a key step toward the rocket's commercialization.
If private companies keep strengthening their capabilities with steady support from space agencies, they'll gain the capacity to launch on their own, opening the way for Nuri to place commercial satellites as well as public ones into orbit.
He added that will even lead to private companies exporting their services later on. And with more Nuri launches planned over the next few years, Korea is steadily preparing to move into orbit as a space powerhouse. 박건우, 아리랑 뉴스.
In other news, industry leaders, researchers and policymakers are gathered here in Seoul for an AI event that shares the latest innovations and explores potential advancements. Our correspondent Moon Ji-young reports.
AI Week, a place to have a peek at South Korea's AI innovation landscape, kicked off in Seoul on Tuesday, hosted by the Ministry of Science and ICT. The event serves as a national strategic platform to showcase Korea's vision and cooperation across AI industries, policies, technologies, and networking. This three-day event saw the full participation of global tech giants such as OpenAI and Perplexity. Perplexity outlined its strategy for targeting the broader Asian market, including South Korea, while OpenAI highlighted the critical importance of the Korean market.
Fundamentally, it comes down to when you look at any given metric, whether that's user adoption, whether that's the government support for AI, whether that's how companies are deploying AI, on all of those different vectors, Korea is really leading the charge.
Meanwhile, cutting-edge AI solutions were on full display in the exhibition area, including digital healthcare. One company introduced an AI-based life care service specifically designed for elderly people living alone.
As single-person households continue to increase and Korea has already entered a super-age society with the population over 65 growing, we expect the demand for our service to rise significantly.
This care service utilizes IoT sensors and AI algorithms to monitor the daily activities of elderly users remotely, providing timely alerts to family members in case of emergencies. In addition, visitors could explore a wide range of innovative technologies, including large language models, robotics, AI semiconductors, and cloud technologies. The event also featured a town hall meeting where the Minister of Science announced a national AI vision. This session included open discussions with participants, highlighting the government's efforts to develop policies in cooperation with the public. With this ambitious vision, South Korea aims to become one of the world's top 3 AI powerhouses. Moon Ji-young, 아리랑 뉴스.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet flagship, the USS Blue Ridge, was at the southern port of Busan following the trilateral multi-domain Freedom Edge exercise. And our defense correspondent Kim Bo-kyung was among the press invited on board to take a look.
Docked in the port city of Busan is a rare view of a ship, the USS Blue Ridge, the command ship for the U.S. 7th Fleet since 1979. Commissioned in 1970, the ship operates out of its home port at Yokosuka, Japan, overseeing waters around the Korean Peninsula as well as parts of the Western Pacific and the Indian Ocean. flying the first Navy Jack flag, symbolizing the oldest active-duty U.S. Navy ship. This 19,600-ton ship has been fully deployed for her entire life, not once entering American waters other than Guam. A handful of reporters who were invited onto the ship to mark its first visit to Busan in more than 5 years were able to witness the ship bearing the marks of time but still boasting of formidable presence.
I'm currently standing on the helipad of the USS Blue Ridge next to a MH-60 Sierra helicopter used for search and rescue missions. This helicopter actually participated in the recent Freedom Edge exercise.
Through the Freedom Edge training, we strengthened our joint maritime operational skills. The port call also provided an opportunity for enhanced cooperation among our Joint Operations Command teams, further improving our joint operational capabilities.
Calling the ROK-US alliance a phenomenal relationship and cornerstone of both peace and stability in Northeast Asia, the commanding officer underlined that the recent joint exercise was more than just a drill.
These exercises have forged unbreakable ties, and the bonds are a commitment to our allies and other countries to ensure an open and free Indo-Pacific. One of the things that I will never forget during my career is looking behind and seeing the flags waving of both the Republic of Korean Navy and the Japanese with the U.S. flag as well.
USS Blue Ridge is soon to set sail from Busan port, but two navies' willingness to strengthen their joint defense posture can be seen through such visits. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Busan.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled a plan to put a tariff of 100% on all films produced outside the United States, following an earlier threat in May. Details on when or how the tariffs could be enacted have not been specified. On Monday local time, Trump posted on social media that every movie made outside of the United States will face a 100% import duty, accusing other countries of having stolen America's film business, just like stealing candy from a baby. He singled out California and the state's governor, calling them weak and incompetent in managing the industry. Industry observers raised immediate concerns following the announcement, as films are often co-produced internationally. While the latest tariff threat is not new, with Trump mentioning the idea once in May, the recent announcement carries renewed weight as the administration claims it is actively moving toward implementation. In Europe, Moldova's ruling pro-European party has secured a parliamentary majority in Sunday's elections, reaffirming the country's push toward the European Union. With over 99% of the ballots counted on early Monday, Moldova's Party of Action and Solidarity, led by President Maia Sandu, captured approximately 50% of the vote, winning about 55 out of 101 seats in parliament. That gives the party the rare ability to govern without forming a coalition. The Patriotic Electoral Bloc, a Moscow-leaning alliance, headed by the country's former president, trailed far behind with a little over 24% of the vote and a weaker showing than expected. EU leaders welcomed the result and praised Moldova for the peaceful conduct of the election. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky praised the results, saying that destabilizing activity from Moscow had failed to sway the people. In Madagascar, President Andry Rajoelina said on Monday that he will dissolve the government following days of youth protests. Thousands of young people have been protesting since Thursday, demanding reliable water and electricity amid nationwide frustration over prolonged power outages. Security forces responded with tear gas, and guards cleared barricades made of rocks and telephone poles. According to the United Nations, at least 22 people have been killed and more than 100 injured. Protesters have also called for the resignation of Madagascar's prime minister and president, accusing them of governance failures. Finally, Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny has been officially confirmed as the headliner for the Super Bowl 60 halftime show set for February 8, 2026 in Santa Clara, California. The NFL announced the three-time Grammy-winning artist will perform at the event during halftime of Sunday Night Football. Bunny said in a statement that the moment goes beyond myself. He also dedicated the performance to his people, culture, and history. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
The last day of September has come. As autumn deepens, the daily temperature range between the morning and the evening is widening. It started at 17.3 degrees Celsius in Seoul this morning. Daegwallyeong was down to single digits with a chilly 5 degrees. In the middle of the day, the temperatures rose significantly to 25 degrees in Seoul and 20 degrees in Daegwallyeong. It will start raining on Thursday night in Jeollanam-do province and Jeju Island, which will expand to other southern regions, the eastern parts of Gangwon-do province and the Chungcheong-do provinces on Friday. Tomorrow morning, Seoul and Daegu will start off at 17 degrees, Chuncheon at 14 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 26 to 28 degrees all over the country. Rain will mostly stop on Friday night, but the eastern parts of Gangwon-do province will continue to have rain until Saturday morning. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session. Do stay with us and thank you for now.